How much does a 63-year-old man living in a care home get in benefits in the UK? Stick around and I'll let you know. Hello, I'm Debbie. Welcome to my channel, Life After a Brain Injury. Just to clarify, I'm not the 63-year-old man living in a care home. That's my husband Stuart, who has had the brain injury, just in case there was any confusion there. So I'm going to talk to you about Stuart's benefits that he gets and how he spent his money. I didn't claim any benefits for Stuart for a long time because I couldn't cope with it all, and I just didn't want to face the paperwork. It was so daunting, but I was advised to apply for through the Court of Protection so that I could be Stuart's guardian for his finances, and that way I've got a certificate which means that I can talk to anybody and everybody that I need to about his finances, because Stuart was in a coma for 6 months, and at the time we were about 3 months in, and at the time we didn't know if Stuart was going to when Stuart was going to fully wake up, and I had to do things like cancel his phone contract, and I couldn't do anything without having the right to do so. So I took advice, and although, as I said before, I buried my head in the sand, I didn't really want to deal with it. It just seemed completely overwhelming having to fill a massive form in, pay £400 for the privilege. That was 10 years ago. I didn't have the money for that, so my daughter gave it to me. I took the advice of a retired solicitor who sat with me and helped me fill the form in, and then on top of that I had to get medical documentation to support our claim that Stuart was in a coma and he couldn't speak for himself. So I asked the brain injury nurse to write a document supporting my application. Now that was incredibly upsetting because, as I said before, none of the consultants, none of the staff were positive about Stuart's progress, but they were also not negative about it. There was basically no prognosis. Everybody is different, no prognosis. And when she wrote her report to back up my claim, she said that it was unlikely that Stuart was going to make a full recovery. That was absolutely heartbreaking to read that. It was awful. I don't know what I expected, but I didn't expect that. She did it without speaking to us first about what she was going to put in it. It was a complete and utter shock. I used it. I used the document. So about 3 or 4 months after Stuart's accident, I put the request in and I got it. I got a certificate that I use whenever I talk to anybody about Stuart's finances. So it was really important that I had it. But it was quite stressful and very emotional to have that document. Anyway, so then I never claimed any benefits because I just couldn't face doing that either. And naively, I assumed that once I did start claiming benefits for Stuart, they would backdate it to the day of the accident. Well, they don't do that. They do it from the date of the claim, which I guess, is fair enough. So I sort of wasn't in any rush to claim it because I just couldn't face it. And then when I did and realised that I'd lost out on a couple of years worth of benefits, I was a bit gutted about that. But mentally, I just wasn't in the right place. So I sort of just plodded on my salary, paying for everything, our mortgage and all the other bills. But Stuart was in rehab, which I'll talk about in another video. He was in rehab for about 3 years, and the staff there talked to me about Stuart getting PIP, which is personal independent payment for people with disabilities. There's different levels of that depending on their personal situation. Stuart lives in a care home, and although he can't really do anything for himself, he gets a lower payment because he lives in a care home and all his needs are taken care of. So that's fine. So I was sort of encouraged to apply for that, which I did, and they came out and interviewed Stuart. Again, we had to get documentation for it, and eventually we received Stuart's PIP, which was great, which helped an awful lot. And then I didn't do anything else. I was under the impression that because Stuart was in a care home, he wasn't entitled to any benefits. And because I didn't earn a massive wage to be living on my own, but I thought that they would take my wages into consideration and decide that we were over the threshold, so Stuart couldn't claim benefits. When Stuart came out of rehab, he went into a care home, which I'll talk about later, and that was 2019, just before COVID. So that was 4 years into his recovery. And I talked to the staff there about benefits, and they said that all the residents at Stuart's place, even if the ones who get their care paid for, all claimed some level of universal credit, and they again encouraged me to apply for it. So I decided to put my big girl pants on, and one of the members of staff helped me with that. So again, I applied for it, not sure if we would be accepted all the time, thinking we wouldn't be accepted for it. And just before the breakout of the COVID virus, we were invited into the job centre, and I had to take Stuart along for an interview. And obviously I was interpreting for Stuart at this time. He was awake and talking, but not very well, so I was his interpreter. And we clarified that Stuart is unlikely that Stuart would be able to work again, and the reasons why I hadn't claimed earlier, which was he was in a coma for 6 months and I was in shock for at least 18 months and couldn't face following through with the application process. And they supported the application, so that was great. So Stuart got universal credit. As soon as Stuart received universal credit, it flagged something up with the council who were paying for Stuart's care. And they contacted me and said that because Stuart was getting universal credit, he had to pay something towards his care. So we went through all his incomings, the fact that we had a mortgage, and because Stuart is on the mortgage, so therefore he's liable to half of it, they took that into consideration. So they came up with a figure of a couple of £100 a month that I had to, £180 a month at the time, that we had to pay towards Stuart's care. I was a bit peed off about this because I'm not very happy with Stuart's care, which is a whole other story. I'm not happy with his care home, and it just stuck in my throat that I had to pay towards his care. But anyway, that's what it was. So we did that. So then we went into lockdown, and I was so grateful that we'd applied for PIP and universal credit before lockdown, because I knew what a nightmare it would be, and everything was getting delayed and that because of all the lockdowns. So fast forward to about 3 years ago, and Stuart had been claiming universal credit for 4 years at that point, 3 or 4 years. And I got an email from the job centre about Stuart's universal credit to say, why isn't he looking for work? Complete shock. Why is Stuart not looking for work? Well, hello, he lives in a care home. You know, if he could work, he wouldn't be looked after in a care home. So I contacted them immediately, and I said, Stuart is never going to be well enough to work. And that's become clearer as time's gone on. So I don't understand why you're asking that Stuart should be working and proving that he's applied for jobs. I mean, complete nonsense. So again, they asked me to bring Stuart in for an interview. So I took him along, had a chat with a very nice caseworker who agreed that Stuart shouldn't be looking for work. And when she looked into it, she realised that Stuart was on the wrong level of universal credit. He was on some fast track to work or something. I can't remember the terms. So not only had a member of staff who apparently did all the applications for the people in the care home for universal credit helped me with that. So, you know, I was a novice. She helped me, and we managed to make the wrong claim. But also, when I arrived for Stuart in a wheelchair, me having to interpret for him, and him quite clearly not being well enough to work, they carried that through, that somehow Stuart was going to make a recovery. Now, the reason that they never realised that Stuart was on the wrong path before that was because COVID delayed everything. So Stuart should have been highlighted after a year of claiming universal credit that he hadn't found a job and what was going on. But because of COVID, it delayed everything. So Stuart and lots of other people fell through the gap. So they were playing catch up. And that's why it took them that long to contact Stuart. So this caseworker absolutely agreed that Stuart was on the wrong level of universal credit. And she gave me the good news that Stuart would be on a higher level, which meant more money. So a week later, we got an email confirming that Stuart's money had almost doubled. I was absolutely over the moon. I was just so excited by this. It was great. And then I thought, well, hang on, if he's been claiming the wrong benefit for 3-4 years, surely we should get back pay. So I thought I'll send them a cheeky email saying that. And we got back pay. We got a lump sum, which again was absolutely great. So I was over the moon, and I just wanted, we'd come out of lockdown. Stuart had 18 months of me not really being able to see much of him, of his life being on hold. And we'd wanted to start doing things with him. I was looking into a gym for him. I wanted to make Stuart's life more bearable. I wanted to do a lot more for him, which all costs money. And I thought, this is brilliant. He's got more universal credit. We can make Stuart's life more bearable. Stuart has lots of visitors and things, but there's lots of days where he has nothing and their care home does nothing with him, which is another story. So I wanted him to have more engagement with the outside world and just make his quality of life better. So I was so excited and making all these plans. A couple of weeks later, I got a phone call from the council. They'd been notified that Stuart's universal credit had gone up. Therefore, we went through the conversation again about all the things that Stuart contributes towards and how much he gets, blah, blah, blah. And they took a huge chunk of that money off him. So we now have to pay, again, his fees for the care home doubled. Nothing compared to what a lot of people are paying for. So nothing compared to that, obviously. So, just to make that clear. But it was a huge, huge knockback. And I said to the guy on the phone, you don't know what you're doing to us. I'm trying to make Stuart's life better and you're just putting us back to square one. And he was very, very sympathetic and he was just doing his job. I cried down the phone because, that's what I always do, have a good cry. And he talked to me for ages and he was very supportive, but he was just doing his job. It wasn't his fault, but I was absolutely furious. I said, what is the point? What is the point of me sorting this out and him getting higher level of universal credit if you're going to take a chunk of it for a care home that I can't even stand, that aren't really caring for him properly, and we're having to pay towards that? I was absolutely furious. I have got it written down about what Stuart gets and what we choose to spend that money on. So Stuart gets £854 a month on universal credit. Now, Stuart was working from the age of 16. He had his accident when he was 53, so he paid national insurance and tax contributions for however many years that was. That's what he was entitled to get. So he gets £854 every 4 weeks. For his PIP, because he's on the lower level, he gets £320 every 4 weeks. So that, according to my maths, is £1,174 a month. Now, that's pretty good, isn't it? That's pretty good. And I know a lot of people will think, what does a man who sits in a wheelchair all day need with that money? Well, he has to pay the council £441 a month for the care home, for the privilege in living in that care home. Stuart also has a very basic phone contract now. He's got a really basic phone so that he can give us a ring. That's £13 a month. He has, because he was self-employed, he had private pensions, which are worth absolute peanuts, but we still pay them, and that's £100 a month. So that comes out of his money. Then after we got all this extra money, I finally found an accessible gym in the area. I've been looking for such a long time, and I finally found one. and Stuart's been going to that for about 2.5 years. So he goes twice a week, but we pay a direct debit of £105 for those twice a week sessions. And it's great because they are very knowledgeable of neurological conditions, MS, Parkinson's, brain injuries, etc. And on top of that, Stuart has, so that's group sessions. And on top of that, Stuart has a one-to-one every other week, every other Saturday with one of the guys there, Matt. And that's just Stuart in the place. I sit on the massage chair because, you know, have a nice massage, why not? And Stuart does that, and he has an hour's intense session with Matt, and that costs £100 a month. And that is money very well spent. So I also, about the same time when I got the increase with Universal Credit, I wanted Stuart to have some nicer experiences. So one of the things was I found a lady who goes to care homes and does aromatherapy massages. So she's been great. She's really chatty. Stuart really likes her. She brings her dog in. She's got loads of energy, and she comes in and she massages his head, his neck, and shoulders, his hands and feet and his legs, and it's great. She'll tell me whether Stuart was in good spirits, but he's always in good spirits with her because he really enjoys her company. Can't remember her name, mind you, but he does really enjoy her company. And that's £40 a month, and it's money well spent. He's had her 2.5 years, I think. She goes in once a month, and she's never increased the prices, and I think that's really money well spent. So on top of that, I buy Stuart's toiletries, which isn't particularly expensive, but I buy all his toiletries. I also buy all of Stuart's clothes. I buy adaptive clothing for Stuart. He wears adaptive trousers because they're much more comfortable sitting in a wheelchair, and they're more expensive than ordinary trousers. I do an awful lot of driving. I counted up the miles I do on an average just for Stuart, and I can't remember how much it was now. I should have done it before this. So I pay for a lot of fuel. Obviously, that's going up all the time, as we know. We go out a lot for lunches and coffees and cakes and things. So sometimes if I'm a bit short, I'll use Stuart's bank account to pay for that. So that's what Stuart's money goes on. I hope it's sort of clarified a few things, and I hope that you don't sort of, if anybody begrudges anybody who's in a care home getting benefits, I hope you sort of realise why they're getting it. It's to make their quality of life better, to improve things for them. It means that I can still buy Stuart's clothes, and I buy clothes that I know he liked before his accident. You know, he's still got, you know, he's still entitled to look nice. Stuart was always very particular. He's still entitled to look nice. So yeah, so that's what we do about money. I don't know what else we spend our money on really, but we never seem to have much left at the end of the month. So I might possibly be missing something and think at the end of this video I should have mentioned this or that. But that's Stuart's income and his outgoings. Stuart's entitled to his state pension in 4 years. He's 64 in August, so in 3 years he's entitled to his state pension, and he could actually claim his private pension now. It is peanuts, but the hassle it will cause with Universal Credit and the council, because they will take more offers and Universal Credit will drop because of his private pension. I just cannot be bothered with the paperwork. I dare say we will still be slightly better off, but just the paperwork. So I thought I'd wait until I get his state pension, and then we'll claim his private pension at the same time. So yeah, hopefully that wasn't too rambly. And my mum said that one of my other videos was very informative but a bit too long, so I hope this fits the bill, and I hope I'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.